Morning, and welcome to the interview today with Karen Bashford. So how are you, Karen?
I'm great, thank you very much for asking.
Brilliant. Well, it's lovely for you to spend some time with us today and to the audience to help them in a variety of different ways. And the topic you've chosen today is about money. And
Yes.
indeed, so treat money as a friend, because obviously people are going through tough times today. A number of different reasons in terms of the cost of living going up, and fuel, whether you're trying to heat your house, and all these different challenges, and mortgage rates going through the roof as well. So tell me a bit about yourself and a bit of background. It'd be great for the audience to.
Okay. Trauma, abuse, lack of money, lack of self-worth. Basically, life has been nothing but a challenge. I've learned to be very resilient. I've been flat broke. I've been homeless. I've been seriously ill. But everything has always been a lesson. And it started in childhood and it's finished. The last year has really been the final clearing of all the trauma.
Wow. So in terms of your experiences, you've gone through a lot in your life,
Yes.
more than many people's put together. So tell me about some of those challenges that are going to help the people understand a bit about you.
Okay. I suppose the one thing I learned from anything is that trauma is hidden. I was not aware that I'd chosen to believe my parents did not love me until I was 50 years old. But it was a choice.
Wow.
They did love me, and I know they did, but they were incapable of hugging me, incapable of telling me they loved me. And even now, my mother still can't tell me she loves me.
Wow, interesting. Why do you think that is? Because is it a different generation of people, or?
Background. I realized basically that we learn from our parents and they learn from their parents. So if they've never experienced the expression of love or had a demonstration by being hugged or even touched, that carries through. I realize nowadays a lot of parents are holding their children, telling them they love them, but sometimes they go to extreme, which is just as damaging as not receiving any at all.
Right.
Because it then can become smothering. So there's a happy medium.
So what do you think the impact to the child is, if that's the case? So it's not this expression of love and compassion.
It does cause self-worth issues. It does cause self-belief issues. Certainly, as I say, I didn't believe I was loved. And because energetically, we put out this energy of attracting the same kind of energy into our space, I chose two partners that didn't know how to love, hadn't been loved. And also, both of them were quite abusive. One was emotionally abusive. The other one was physically and emotionally abusive, simply because that was the kind of love that we matched. Not that I was ever physically abused by my parents, but we match what we know. Consequently, I attracted to abusive relationships.
I'm sorry to hear that. And obviously, that was is that the trauma you were alluding to earlier?
That's part of the trauma, yes.
Right.
Yes.
It's probably a subject for another day. We can probably go into that a bit more detail if we have time. So, in relation to money, tell me sort of your relationship with money and how you come around to sharing this story.
My relationship with money has always been a challenge. I've had lots of money and I've had 2 pence in my purse kind of relationship with money. Again, that comes back to your own self-belief, your own self-worth, and what you believe you are deserving of. Because if you don't believe you deserve to have money, you won't.
Right. So your belief is a big aspect of making sure you have good relationship with money.
Yeah.
So how did you sort of accumulate your wealth in the early days? Then all of a sudden you've lost it, then you've gained it again and back up again.
That was partly to do with my relationships. I had a partner who unfortunately didn't believe in working very often. So I then had to go and earn money. And there was this necessity, there was this need, and I wanted a good home. So I worked damned hard for it. And I don't advocate working hard for money now, simply because I know you don't need to. But at the time, that's all I knew. And I went and made good money. And it worked. And then I lost it because we got divorced. I landed up with 0 in my divorce. And I had to stop working because I'd always been the breadwinner. My husband could claim financially off of me for the rest of his life.
Right. Okay.
So I stopped earning, and it was like, don't need to earn, so I'm not going to earn. And then when I come back to being able to work again, it was like I'd lost the motivation. There was nothing there to keep me going.
Wow. So that's probably a familiar story up and down the country, unfortunately.
Yes.
You know, from either side, you know, a relationship where all of a sudden you've got this quality of life, then all of a sudden that's taken away from you because someone's taken that money away for their own means. In terms of how you generated that income, you talk about belief. So can you give us a bit more background in terms of, was it in business or was it in a career?
I trained as a financial advisor. I worked for a bank. Part of the money I made was being made redundant and then going out and getting another job. So utilizing that money to make sure it earned money for me. And luckily at the time when it was happening, it was good interest rates. And being in the background of finance, I knew what to do with it and how to make it work for me. So that makes a big difference.
Interesting. So the skill and knowledge you're talking about there,
Yeah.
applying those. So tell us a bit more about mindset and our attitude to money.
Right. Well, money, it wants to be your friend. The trouble is sometimes we have a tendency to treat our money as we treat ourselves, with very little respect, very little understanding. We're quite critical of ourselves. If we treat money like that, it's not going to stay around because money is high energy.
I see.
It wants to come to you.
When you say high energy, that's interesting because I thought I had treating money as my friend, but sometimes friends leave me, so the money leaves me as well. So it's an interesting relationship. So tell me about this energy then.
We vibrate, everything in this world vibrates. Money is a high vibration. So if you believe in yourself, if you trust yourself, if you respect yourself, if you've got this self-care in place, and it doesn't have to be luxury self-care, it can just be across the board self-care. You eat well, you buy the best that you can afford and things like that. Money will come to you simply because you're respecting yourself and you're vibrating at a high level.
Yeah. So
if you are, say, flat broke, and you focus constantly on being flat broke, that's what you'll bring to you, is more flat broke.
So if you're focusing on the being broke, then you attract that type of energy. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's an energy. It's pure energy. Whereas, you know, if you're focusing on gratitude and being able to say, I am buying this, or I'm not affording this at the moment, I'd rather pay for this. You change the energy instantly. You change how you're vibrating because your focus is on more of the positive rather than the negative.
Interesting. So in terms of this, obviously millionaires and billionaires out there, so they're attracting a certain amount of energy, and there's other people that are not interested in the big wealth, but they have good energy as well, and they sort of live within their means and they're quite happy. So how do you sort of differentiate between those?
If you're a millionaire or a billionaire, usually you're doing something good with the money. So you're giving forward or you're paying back. It depends how you look at it. But also you're appreciating that money. You're not necessarily being greedy. Say somebody who is greedy, they're likely to have other issues in their lives that, because of that greed, is created. Whereas if you're loving of money and what money can do for you and other people, Doesn't matter what level you're at, you will still bring money to you. You will still appreciate what you have.
Yes. Well, as we know, money is a tool,
Mm.
and some people will do good things with money, and some people not so. It's difficult to differentiate sometimes about people accumulating wealth and putting it to good use. When some people complain about, they say that the top earners in organizations, they earn, 30, 40 years ago, probably 10 times the basic salary. Now it's about 100, if not 1,000 times. So people are obviously not happy about things like that because there's this such a big gap. So what can we do for these individuals? What do you recommend for people to, any tips to provide ways of developing a better mindset for managing money, advice and tips to provide for paying off for loans and credit cards, things like that?
Right, managing money is, if you think about it, we're all told to budget. When you think of the word budget, it's restriction.
Mm-hmm.
Stop thinking of restriction.
Right. Okay.
Have a plan of action, have a spending plan if you want. It changes the energy.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're giving yourself permission to spend, but spend within your income or less than your income, so that you can then put money aside.
Right.
But money is supposed to be utilized. It's
Mm-hmm.
not supposed to just sit. So don't go to the point where you've got so much savings that it's just sitting doing nothing. Utilize it to help yourself. So maybe you can find ways and means, and I can't give financial advice, I'm not qualified to do so, but you can find saving plans that perhaps give a bit more interest.
Yes.
That then is utilizing money.
Mm-hmm.
Be willing to perhaps up slightly your sense of luxury.
Right.
That doesn't mean you have to go on a spa weekend or anything like that. It just means that perhaps you treat yourself to something that you wouldn't normally treat yourself to.
I see. Because we all know the stories about people hoarding money under the pillow,
Yeah,
under the bed and
yeah.
mattress.
It
It
doesn't work
didn't do
because
anyone any good.
you're working on the lack. You're believing that if you go and spend the money, you're not going to have anything back.
So they're quite frugal.
Yeah.
They have lots of money, but they don't do anything with it.
No.
So you're saying that allow yourself to spend the money in a sensible way, to let it flow.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah,
Because if you believe that you deserve to have money, you will start allowing money to flow to you.
I see. So what other tips would you advise individuals in relation to saving money?
Saving money, definitely you need to have 6 months worth of income covered.
Yes.
If for any reason you're out of work, whether you're sick, and we know that if you're sick, it always costs extra money.
Mm-hmm.
So at least have 6 months worth of money that you can access.
Right. Okay.
Don't have it in a savings plan where you have to give notice, because basically then you could potentially lose the money or paying extra for the privilege of taking it out, which is going to cost you money.
Okay. So it's
With regards loans or credit cards even, keep that to the minimum. Don't borrow, because you're actually creating a situation where you're paying for something far more than you need to. So only borrow for something that's going to increase in value.
Right.
Or something you have to have, like a car, you've got no option. But then make sure that you can afford it and you repay it as quickly as possible.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tricky because a credit card, it's an easy fix for a lot of people, but unfortunately, it can be something that's going to weigh people down, and the interest rates are so high, and people have lost jobs, probably unemployed, so they turn to credit cards. Bills have gone through the roof. So, any sort of tips around paying off the credit cards? Do we need to go elsewhere for advice?
Right. There are companies that are available. I think one of them is Change, where you can go for financial advice if you're actually suffering financial problems. They don't charge. They will give you sensible advice. If you've got any kind of borrowing, make sure you start paying off the highest interest charger, not the lowest,
Right.
or the
Okay.
one that's got the least in it. Because
Mm.
if you look at how much interest you're paying,
Yeah.
say you borrowed 1,000 and the interest rate is something like 24-25%.
Mm.
On a monthly basis, that's £24 of your money
Yes.
going just on interest. Why would you want to pay that
Mm.
if you don't need to?
Yes. Because people go to loan shops sometimes, payday loans, isn't it? Those type of things. Which,
Yeah.
unfortunately,
Although they've cut down a lot on them, there is a lot more restrictions on them.
yeah, because they're very
So,
high
yeah.
interest rates on those,
Yeah.
isn't it? Because banks aren't loaning the monies that they used to, really, isn't it?
No.
Um,
But I would suggest, if they do have financial issues, certainly speak to the companies that can give financial advice with regards to how to deal with the debt.
Mm.
But the other thing is to be aware of, don't ignore it.
Mm.
The longer you ignore it, the more it's going to cost you, because companies will chase
Yes.
and they will put extra pressure on you to get an answer.
Mm.
They're not there to make life hard for you. They're there to help you.
Mm. Mm.
So don't be afraid to pick up the phone and just speak to them.
Yes, that's interesting, because sometimes people ignore the letters,
Mm.
and they don't sort of take action.
No.
So having a conversation with the bank, I suppose, and
Bank, credit card, whatever.
Mm.
It's better to have a conversation, because they will do their utmost to help you, because they
Mhm.
want that debt paid off,
Yes,
and they don't want to be seen to be being unfair on you. But if you choose to ignore them, they have no option but to take legal action, which costs more money,
yes,
and you
exactly.
have to pay that back.
Yeah, because people talk about consolidating the loans, and it's to reduce the amount of payment over a period of
Mm.
time.
Yeah.
Obviously, it affects credit scores,
Yeah.
and if you got CCJs, so
Mhm.
you've been evicted, or people trying to get possession of your goods and home, that's
Yeah.
quite stressful, isn't it?
Very, very stressful, which is why it's better to have a conversation, because
Mm.
that's not where they want to go necessarily.
Indeed, indeed. So
Yeah.
what advice would you give to those individuals? Because you said you've had two pennies in your purse, and how do you get around that? Where people are quite very,
It's
angry,
scary.
emotional. Yeah, scary, isn't it? Scary place to
It's
be.
absolutely petrifying.
Indeed.
But at the end of the day, I always took the attitude that if I've even only got 2p, I've got money.
Hmm.
I can manage to usually create something food-wise. I've probably got some food in the cupboard or something like
Mm.
that. Or, you know what? You've got friends. Even
Yeah.
if they're struggling, they won't let you starve.
Yes.
And there's things like food banks nowadays. If you're
Indeed.
seriously struggling, go and have a word with the local council or your job centre or something like that. There are
Mm.
people out there. Shelter will help you, anything like that. Citizen advice.
Hmm.
There is so much, especially in the UK, there is a lot of advice available that will help you get through.
Indeed.
But with the attitude that you even have 2p, you have money.
Well, that is
You can
positive.
be grateful for that money.
Yeah, a definitely positive attitude to celebrating. You've got two pence, but you're so right. We have lots of organisations out there to share the burden, to go for advice, and people are not alone, are they? They're not alone in
No.
this situation.
No. Even if you just reach out and you could just talk to a friend about the situation. The problem with most of us is we're ashamed of the fact that we're not doing so well.
Yes.
We don't like to talk about it.
Yes.
But as they say, a problem shared is a problem halved.
Yes. That's
So
interesting.
just go and talk to somebody. It's amazing what people will come up with ideas to help you.
Wow, that's really good to look at that in terms of seeking advice from the right people and with the right attitude. It's not an easy journey for a lot of people. But sometimes maybe you can talk about value. Sometimes people value themselves because they say, "Oh, that person's more valued because they're richer." But it's not about
Loads
money,
of
is it? How do we reconcile that? Because People look at people with better clothes, better cars,
So
holidays.
what?
Yes,
So
indeed.
what? It doesn't matter. You
Mm.
make the most of what you have. And actually, nobody knows your story. Nobody knows what I've been through to the point where I have literally been that broke.
Mm.
It's a story I share, but nobody knows what brought me to that point.
Yes.
But looking at me and what I was wearing, you would not believe that I was that broke.
Really.
Nobody knows what goes on behind. Nobody knows what goes on behind closed doors even. And
Mhm.
my relationships, nobody knew what was going on with them because I never told anyone.
Until I suppose things change after then, and once you
Yeah.
manage to have that
As soon
conversation.
as you start opening up and being honest with yourself and saying, okay, I'm in this situation simply because I made some mistakes, and I did make mistakes. I'm the first to admit I'm terrible at making mistakes, but learn from those mistakes.
Yeah.
And grow from them. And once you realize that you're human and you're not perfect,
Yes.
nor is anyone else around you, just because somebody else has got more money than you doesn't mean to say they're better than you. It's just that perhaps they've had a better start in life, or they're lucky and they haven't lost a job.
Indeed. Indeed. I've been there. I've been made redundant 4 times, and it, creates its own challenges about self-esteem, self-worth, and got bills to pay, families to look after, and you have to dig deep and believe in your ability to know that you can provide for the family. But I'm sure there's many families out there facing similar issues. So sort of this conversation sort of got us back to money being your friend. What sort of last few words would you like to give to the audience about that?
Okay, well, knowing you were going to ask this, I sat and thought about it. And what I would say is let go of fear. Fear is a dampener. It literally holds you back, whether it's fear of lack, of not having, or of losing. Your relationship with yourself has to be, I can do this, that I'm safe, that I will be looked after. And that comes down to whatever religion you believe in, or even if you just believe that the universe is there supporting you. It makes a big difference to how you view your life, how you live your life, and how well you do financially. And it's down to gratitude and appreciation for what you have, even if you only have 2p.
Wonderful. That's great words to share with our audience. So how do people get hold of you, Karen?
They can go to my website. It's karenbashford.com. There's a link to be able to contact me and have a call with me. I offer a 30-minute call just to have a chat to see whether I can help, whether the way I work is suitable, because I'm very much into healing and practical advice. So yes, they can do that, or they can connect with me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Fabulous. Thank you once again. We really appreciate you sharing your background and how to help people have a better affinity to money, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.